Being chronically lonely increases your risk of death by more than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Not stress, not obesity, loneliness. That's not a metaphor, that's a measured, published, peer-reviewed number, and almost nobody has heard it. Right now, somewhere near you, there's a person who looks completely fine. They go to work, they answer emails, they smile in the group photo, and their body is quietly running a stress response usually reserved for physical danger, all because of something as invisible as who they eat dinner with. So how did scientists figure this out, and why has almost nobody heard the actual number? To understand it, you have to go back to a small town in Pennsylvania that shouldn't have existed, medically speaking. In the 1950s, a doctor named Stewart Wolf heard something strange from a colleague. In the town of Roseto, Pennsylvania, almost nobody under 65 was dying of heart disease. At the time, heart disease was the leading killer in America. Roseto's residents smoked, they drank wine with lunch, they cooked with lard instead of olive oil. By every dietary standard doctors used, they should have been dropping dead at the same rate as everyone else. They weren't. Wolf assembled a team and studied the town for over a decade, tracking diet, exercise, genetics, smoking, cholesterol, blood pressure, everything a doctor in 1961 knew how to measure. None of it explained the gap. The people of Roseto ate worse and moved less than nearby towns, and still died of heart attacks at less than half the national rate. Eventually, Wolf noticed something he almost hadn't thought to measure at all. Roseto was built entirely around multi-generational households and constant social contact. Grandparents lived with their children. Neighbors dropped in unannounced. Civic clubs met multiple times a week. Nobody in Roseto ate a meal completely alone if they didn't want to. Wolf's conclusion, controversial at the time, was that the town's social structure itself was acting as a kind of medicine. For decades, this idea sat on the edge of respectable science. Loneliness sounded too soft, too emotional to belong in a conversation about heart attacks and mortality tables. That changed in 2010, when a psychologist named Julianne Holt-Lunstad did something nobody had done before. She pulled together 148 separate studies, covering more than 300,000 people, and ran the numbers on how strongly social connection predicted whether someone was still alive years later. The results stunned even her own research team. People with strong social relationships had a 50% higher likelihood of survival over the study periods compared to people with weak ones. When she translated that into a comparison doctors and the public could actually feel, the number came out like this. Chronic loneliness was comparable to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. It ranked above obesity. It ranked above physical inactivity. It ranked above air pollution. Isolation wasn't just uncomfortable. Statistically, it was one of the most lethal conditions a modern human being could quietly carry around. But here's what makes this stranger. Loneliness doesn't kill you the way a virus does. There's no organism attacking your cells. So what is actually happening inside a lonely body that raises the risk of death this much? The answer starts with a hormone your ancestors needed constantly: cortisol. In evolutionary terms, being alone wasn't a mood. It was a 5-alarm emergency. A human separated from the group, for most of history, was a human without backup against predators, without help hunting, without protection for their children. Your nervous system evolved to treat social disconnection as a physical threat, because for nearly your entire evolutionary history, it was one. Neuroscientist John Cacioppo spent years studying exactly this. His research found that lonely individuals show measurably elevated cortisol levels, similar to people under chronic physical stress, even when nothing dangerous is actually happening around them. Their bodies remain in a low-grade state of alert, day after day, year after year. That constant low-grade alarm state does real physical damage over time. It raises blood pressure, it increases inflammation throughout the body. It disrupts sleep, which in turn worsens nearly every other health marker doctors track. Cacioppo referred to this as the body treating loneliness like an injury that never heals, constantly diverting resources toward a threat that isn't a lion in the grass anymore, but simply an empty apartment. And here's the part almost nobody talks about. Loneliness isn't just about how many people are physically around you. Some people live entirely alone and feel completely fine. Some people are surrounded by family, coworkers, and neighbors constantly, and still feel profoundly, dangerously isolated. Holt-Lunstad's later research made a sharp distinction between objective isolation, meaning the actual number of social contacts a person has, and subjective loneliness, meaning whether a person feels connected. Subjective loneliness turned out to be the more dangerous of the two. What mattered to your body wasn't a head count. It was whether your nervous system believed backup existed if you needed it. This explains something that used to confuse researchers. Nursing home residents visited daily by staff can still register as profoundly lonely if none of those visits feel like genuine connection. Meanwhile, someone living alone by choice, deeply embedded in a handful of close relationships, can show almost none of the physiological stress markers found in isolated populations. Your body isn't counting people in the room. It's asking a much older, much simpler question. If something went wrong right now, Is anyone actually coming? This is where the Roseto story gets its second act, and it's the part almost nobody mentions when they tell it. Roseto's protection didn't last. Starting in the 1960s and accelerating through the 1970s, younger generations began moving away for work, marrying outside the community, adopting more individualistic American suburban lifestyles. The extended households broke apart, the nightly porch visits and civic clubs thinned out, and as the town's social fabric loosened, generation by generation, Roseto's heart disease rates rose to match the rest of the country. Nothing about the food changed, nothing about the genetics changed. What changed was who ate dinner together. Modern life has accelerated this shift everywhere, not just in one Pennsylvania town. In the United States, the average number of close confidants a person reports has been shrinking for decades. In a landmark study, researchers found the percentage of Americans reporting zero close confidence had roughly tripled between 1985 and 2004. People increasingly report having no one to discuss important matters with at all, not a spouse, not a friend, not a sibling. And this trend has continued sharply since, worsened further by remote work, digital communication replacing in-person contact, and the general erosion of the kinds of civic and neighborhood structures that once made a place like Roseto function almost as a form of medicine. You are, biologically, still the same animal that needed the tribe to survive the night. Every notification on your phone, every quick text instead of a visit, every year spent putting off calling someone back, is a small transaction with a nervous system that still keeps score the same way it did 200,000 years ago. It doesn't know about video calls. It doesn't know about social media followers. It only knows one ancient question. If something happened to me right now, is anyone actually coming? And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Unlike smoking, loneliness doesn't come with a warning label. Nobody hands you a package with a picture of a damaged heart on it when you decide to skip another dinner with friends, or let another year pass without seeing family, or trade a real conversation for a screen. There's no cough, no smell, no visible symptom most people would recognize as a health risk at all. It simply, quietly, statistically shortens your life, one skipped connection at a time, while looking from the outside like nothing is wrong whatsoever. The people of Roseto weren't healthier because of what was on their plates. They were healthier because, biologically speaking, help was always in the room. That's the part modern life quietly took away, and it did it so gradually that almost nobody noticed it happening until the data started coming back.